Hello everyone, Amod here from the Target Common YouTube channel. In this video tutorial, we are going to learn to write XPath with attributes. We know that a HTML web element may contain one or more attributes. Attributes are additional properties to HTML web element. And the same attribute we can use with XPath to locate this web element. For example, here we have a button web element. It consists of one attribute called name and the value of this name is button1. Let's see how can we use these attributes with XPath to locate these elements. I'm going to launch this web page in Chrome browser and let me inspect it. Press Ctrl F and expand the body tag. So if I ask you, give me all the button tags where we have name attribute. So let's write relative XPath. So relative XPath starts with two forward slashes and we need to provide the tag name which I am looking for, which is button. So as of now, it is finding total 4 web elements. Now I want to filter it using the attributes. So what is the condition? Button element should contain name attribute. So to use the filter, use the square brackets, and to use the attribute, use the add symbol. This add will be used only with attribute and you need to give the attribute name, which is name. So you can see now it is giving you total 2 web elements. First one, it has a name attribute, and second one, it also has the name attribute. Remaining two buttons are not highlighted or found because it does not contain name attribute. I want to get the buttons where we don't have name attribute. So for that we need to use another function called not. So within the square bracket use not and use the parenthesis and put at name within that. So now you can see it is highlighting total 2 buttons. First button does not contain name and for the next one click enter, so it will highlight the second one, and here also we don't have name attribute. You need to be very careful with the syntax. Not is the function, so we need to use the parenthesis, and for the entire filter we need to use the square brackets. Now let's use the attribute values as well. So I want to locate the button element where name attribute any specific value. So for that again use two forward slashes button tag. To filter I need to use the square brackets, and since I'm going to use attribute, so use add symbol and give the attribute name which is name, then equal to button1, and since it is a string so I need to pass in single quotes. So this XPath will give you the button where the name attribute is present with the value button1. If I use button2, then you can see it is not highlighting and it is giving 0 of 0. Now if you want to locate the button web elements where name attribute value is not equal to button1, so instead of equal to operator use not equal to. So you can see it is highlighting 1 of 1 and the highlighted element has the name attribute but the value is button2. Instead of this not symbol, we can use the not function as well. So remove it from here and at the starting put not and use the parenthesis. See it carefully, it is giving total 3 web elements found with this condition. And if you see here, first element contains name attribute but the value is not equal to button1, so it is highlighting. If you go to next web element, you can see here it does not contain name attribute itself, and for the third one also it does not contain name attribute, but still it is highlighted. We are using the not function, so it is going to find all the button web elements where we don't have name attribute, or if we have then value should not be equal to button1. So you need to be very careful when to use not function or not operator. Now suppose you want to find all the buttons where name attribute contains some specific value. Instead of not function we can use contains. For the attribute name use the add symbol and use the attribute name, and instead of equal to use the comma and give the value whatever you want to check for. So this XPath will give you the button where we have the name attribute and the value of name attribute contains button1. Here we have button1, so it is highlighting. If you remove 1, then also it is going to highlight because the value is button1 and we are looking for only button. Similarly, if your attribute value has a pattern like it is starting with some specific character, then instead of contains we can use starts with function. So let's replace contains with starts with. Use the add symbol with the attribute name and pass the value, and here we going to use the comma, and you can see it is highlighting 1 of 1, which is this element. If I pass button 1 2 3, so you can see it is giving 0 of 0 because none of the button web element starts with button 1 2 3 for the name attribute. And here I want all the buttons where name attribute value does not start with button. Then I need to use not function with the parenthesis, and here I need to use the closing one as well. So here I am using two functions, not and starts with, and it is highlighting total three wave elements. Reason we know, here we have the name attribute, but the value is different. For the second one, we don't have the name attribute, so obviously it's going to find because we are using the not function. And same thing for the third one. So we can combine multiple functions. Here we have a button wave element and one custom attribute data hyphen number, and the value is 42. So let me quickly write a relative XPath with this attribute. Copy the attribute name, type two forward slashes button, add symbol, give the attribute name, and value is 42. So it is highlighting. But if you're dealing with calendars or some application where we have multiple numbers, so you might be looking for wave element which contains an attribute and the value is greater than or lesser than a specific number. To show this demo, let me quickly add two more buttons with this data number attribute. So suppose I want all the button wave elements where value of data number attribute is less than 35. So instead of equal to operator, I'm going to use less than and use the value 35. So you can see it is highlighting only the second one because data number value is 10, which is lesser than 35. If you want to use less than equal to, then with the less than use equal to. Now it is highlighting total two wave elements. First one data number is 10 and second one is 35. We can also use greater than, like greater than 35. So it is going to highlight the first one because we have only one button with the data number value as 42, which is greater than 35. Suppose you want to write the XPath with condition on the length of attribute value. Then we can use another function called string hyphen length. So I'm going to use two forward slashes button, use the square brackets, and function name is string hyphen length and use the parentheses. I want to get the value of name attribute. So use at name. So this function will get the value of name attribute and return the length of it. And if the length of that value equal to 7, then return that wave element. So you can see it is highlighting total two wave elements. First one, here we have the name attribute and the length of this button one is 7. Similarly for the second button wave element. If I use instead of 7, I use 8, then it is not returning you any wave element because condition is not satisfied. Now suppose the attribute value is dynamic and you need to pass it through some external sources, and that value you may need to combine with some another string. So in those cases we can use concatenation. So suppose here I'm going to use at name and the value of this name attribute will be driven from a function which is concat. So I'm simply going to use button, use comma and another string. Let's put in single quotes only and hit enter. So you can see it is highlighting one of one. So instead of giving the value directly, I am using the concat function and concatenating two different strings. You can use more than two strings as well. These functions are really very helpful for the dynamic attribute values. We can also use substring. So for that, instead of concat, use substring function and let me use button 123. So this substring will take total three arguments. First one, the string from where I need to get the substring. So I'm passing button 123. Then it is always starting from 1, not from 0. So use 1 or from wherever you want to slice and give the length, like how many characters you want from the starting index. So I'm going to use 7. So from button 1 to 3, it will slice this much because it is starting from 1 and till 7. So I will get the output as button 1 and it is satisfying the condition. The major advantage of these functions is that we can use XPath as well. For example, instead of this hard-coded text, if you want to fetch the text from some another wave element. Just for the scenario, here I have the value of name attribute as button 1 and here I have one another button wave element where text contains button 1. So I want to get the text of this wave element and slice button 1 from here to match this value. So I'm going to just copy this and store somewhere. Let me write the locator for this button wave element. So I'm going to use slash slash button, use the attribute class and value is class 1. So it is highlighting and it is giving 1 of 1. Now I'm going to use this XPath with my existing substring function. So instead of this hard-coded button 123, remove this and paste the copied XPath. Let's copy the entire XPath now. Go to Chrome and paste here. Now you can see it is also highlighting one of one and it is giving you this element. So what is actually happening? This XPath will be evaluated and it will give you the text, which is button 1 with class attribute. And here I am slicing from position 1 to 7 characters, which will be this much. And this button 1 is satisfying this name attribute value here. So it is giving you this web element. And if you're thinking maybe while locating in a browser it is working, but if you use with same name it will not work. So I'm going to copy this locator and go to IntelliJ. I'm already loading the HTML page, and for this statement I'm going to paste my locator with the substring. And if you see here I am simply retrieving the get text. I need to use get 0 because I'm using find elements. You can use the find element as well. So let me use find element, remove this one. Let me quickly run this program. And you can see it has written the text button with name attribute, which is the first one. Here notice one thing, we see one of one, but it is highlighting total two wave elements. So one wave element is coming from this inner XPath. So that's all in this video. If you have any confusion, please comment on this video. If you really like my videos, please like, comment, subscribe and share with others. Thank you everyone.